Yes, here we go. Thank you guys so much for turning up today. So I am going to share my screen with you and we will get right into it. Just give me 1 minute. I thought I had it lined up. Apparently I don't. 1 second. Here we go. And today's presentation, my presentation for you guys today is basically things I think we are all doing in therapy for the most part. And 1 second, let me just make sure it's lined up properly. And I just kind of, in all my readings and research and stuff like that, I kind of came up with this framework to help make life a little easier. So, all right, hang on. Here we go. Right, let me just move you guys out of the way here. Sent. All right, you guys seeing the screen? Yeah? Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So I came up with this idea of something called the therapeutic tree, and it's really a framework, as it says, for co-treatment sessions specifically when working with young autistic learners, but definitely it could be applied to any other child that's having social communication difficulties or having difficulties with communication on a whole. And it's a framework for just bringing speech and OT together. I'm so lucky and blessed to have to be able to work with an occupational therapist in the office. I'm Shannon, who I wish was here today to help me present, because she and I worked on this together, but today really wasn't a good day for her. So I'm going to do the best I can with her part of, the information that I'm going to share. So Shannon and I work together. We've been working together for, I want to say, well, going on 4 years or so, or even more. We've shared office, and then we always talked about working together because we share a lot of clients. And we moved to a new office, and it was just kind of like, let's do this. And so we do co-treatment sessions once a week. So we have a whole day that we will do sessions together. The child come in and we will do the session together, and we do share office, but the co-treatment sessions we do it once a week. We have a gym, and she's so lovely. I've learned so much from her, and I'm sure vice versa. So this is what Shannon and I just through our work and just my research and reading and bringing her research as well together, we came up with something called the therapeutic tree. Hi, Fiola. Which is something that we use, like it's almost like a guideline that we kind of use to help us. You could even think of it as almost like a sort of like an IEP. Like for every client that we have for our co-treatment program, we use this framework to help guide us as to what the goals are, and to get to know the child even better as well, as you'll see as I go along. Right? So um I just want to warn you guys, the PowerPoint, I don't know, for some reason I can change the way it pops up like that. So just be mindful. It kind of like startles you at first. All right, so we're gonna identify the sensory systems that as it applies to regulation, right? And state how social interests and social awareness and social skills are important for overall back and forth communication, and then apply sensory supports for increased social reciprocity to higher level communication and motor planning. So that's a whole lot that I just said there, but basically is really when we have a child that has difficulties with communication or have a child with difficulties with social communication, how we can start really understanding where those difficulties are and how we can support them to really get better back and forth communication happening. All right. So because I do work with young autistic kids most of the times, just to get, just to kind of tune you into that. Young autistic children and people often have problems with social communication and interaction, as you know, and they have restricted or repetitive behaviors or interests. and they may also have different ways of learning, moving, or paying attention. Now, these characteristics can make life very challenging, as you guys, I'm sure, has experience with some autistic clients or other clients that have difficulty with communication. And I just want you to know, it is important to know that there are people without autism that also have these kind of symptoms. So you can have these symptoms and may not necessarily have autism. And definitely with autism, you have, restricted behaviors, difficulties with social communication and interaction, right? So because autistic kids have a different way of learning and a different way of moving and a different way of paying attention, they really have to be supported through the world and through their own environment. And we as therapists can do this by first understanding something. I'm going to just give you the acronym called FEDC, and I'll explain what that is in a minute, and provide co-treatment whenever possible. So that is really the basis of it, Our kids or neurotypical kids don't have these issues, and our kids who have neurodiverse definitely have difficulties in communicating, difficulties with interacting, and there are lots of things that we can do to help with that. So the therapeutic tree really outlines a framework for integrating speech and occupational therapy together in one session. And it introduces a metaphor of a tree to explain how our children develop. And I just told you the acronym FEDC, which stands for Functional Emotional Developmental Capacities. And this is based on the DIR floor time model and this was, from the International Council on Development and Learning. And hoping that most of you here, well, who's here, have heard of floor time, and it's a specific model of working with families and children with autism or having social communication difficulties. So functional, emotional, developmental capacities. There are 6 emotional developmental capacities, and they're sometimes referred to as milestones, and they form the fundamental basis for every child's learning and growth. These FEDCs, functional, emotional, developmental capacities. However, our neurodiverse children may face challenges in building this foundation, not because they are unable to develop these capacities, but due to the added complexity posed by their neurodiversity and their neurodiverse development and biological differences, they really have a hard time. And I'm going to go through what some of those, what the FEDCs are, what the 6 FEDCs are, right? All right, so the 6 areas of development, and I want you to think of the tree literally from the roots to the trunk to the branches and the leaves. Down at the bottom, the first area of development is regulation. The second, as we kind of move up, and I want you to kind of think of it like that. We're starting at the roots again, at the trunk and the leaves and the branches and the leaves. The second area of development is engagement, which goes with relating with people and interest in the world and interest in people. Then there's intentionality and two-way communication. So reciprocity is happening now. So we're going from regulation to interest to more intentional communication with somebody else. Then we have complex communication. So introducing new ideas to people that you can form your own ideas and execute it out in the world. Then we have creating and elaborating with symbols. So being able to maybe write, use visuals, and creating even higher level of language. And then emotional and abstract thinking. So that's kind of really at the top of the tree, the top branches. So these are the 6 areas of development. And like I said before, most of the times our kids with autistic kids, kids who are having difficulties with communication, sometimes these areas are not developing the way that they should, but there are things that we can do to help with this development, right? And as you see, the tree is kind of like in the middle there, and I try to make it where regulation, I want you to think regulation is the roots, and that's what really holds a tree down. And if our kids aren't regulated, there's going to be issues in other areas, and I'll get into that in a minute. All right. Then these are the parts of the trees, the way that I kind of looked at it, right? There are three kind of main parts. Like I said, the roots, which is the regulation piece. Then number two, we have the trunk, which is, we could think of reciprocal communication back and forth happening nicely between you and the child and somebody else. Then at the top, we have the branches and the leaves, which is the communicating for a variety of reasons. So not only to ask or request things, but to share interests, to ask for help, to negate, to correct if information is given wrong. Lots, any of the reasons to communicate. This is what's happening at that high level of the branch, and engaging through various means, including motor planning and visual skills. So this is kind of like part two, where the OT kind of works with with motor planning, visual skills. Can I look at things in the world? Can I make sense of it? Am I able to move my body throughout without any difficulties, and be able to kind of integrate all that together? So we have the roots, we have the trunk, and then we have the branches and the leaves. And those are just the different areas as we move up into the tree. Please feel to stop me, guys, if you have any questions about anything, but we definitely could talk about it at the end. All right, so let's start with the roots. And this is where OT really this is where the OT comes in, because let me just kind of say what regulation is. Regulation is, staying regulated without the helps of others, that you can sit and you can attend, you're not fidgeting, you're not moving around, that you are able to do that for yourself. And if you can't, which is a lot of the times our kids with autism, autistic kids, do have difficulty with self-regulation. So we have to do something called co-regulation. That's when somebody helps the individual to regulate. And that's where I rely a whole lot on OT when we're in session together, that she's the one that kind of, both of us, of course, will figure out what kind, if this child is like, they're moving around too much, or maybe they're moving around too little, if they are overly sensitive or undersensitive, and then she will kind of pull out whatever OT tools or whatever OT things that she has to do to get that child to be regulated, because you have to be regulated first in order to attend to things and people. And we make sense of the world through all the different senses we have. Sense of, we have an auditory sense, how we taking sounds, a visual sense, of course, how we see things, how we take that in as well and make sense of that, gustatory, or a sense of taste, or a sense of smell, tactile, how we're, sense of touch, proprioceptive and vestibular. And I think these last two ones there, proprioceptive and vestibular, is kind of the main ones that we see a lot in session. And the proprioceptive sense is how we make sense of how the child makes sense of their bodies in space. How much muscle they have to put in to do things. Are they aware of, they can lift things, move things, run? What do they have to do to lift their feet up to climb? That sort of thing like that. And vestibular sense is a sense of balance and how we orient in the world, right? And a lot of the times our kids really have a hard time with that. So starting at the root, if not tended correctly, can and have a child be dysregulated. And that, as I said, this is where OT really kind of steps in and figure out what kind of regulation that this child needs and apply it while we're in session. While she's doing that, I'll be working on the communication. I'm going to definitely show you some examples of that in a minute. So that's really the root part of it, making sure that regulation is good. If a child can self-regulate, or we have to co-regulate, well, we have to help them be able to regulate. All right. So what does dysregulation look like? If a child is dysregulated, right? Constantly on the move, not keeping their body still, sometimes zoning out a little bit, fleeting eye gaze to the communicative partner, easily distracted by sights and sounds in the environment, kind of going back to the our sense of sight and sound, like that really picks up most of their attention, so they can't put their attention on you. Decreased focus and attention to tasks, upset or crying for sometimes maybe not very obvious reasons to us, and incongruous reactions, so sometimes very sad or very, very happy. So just kind of like all over the place. So when we see signs of these, we like, this child is not regulating, and there's some things that we can do. And OT, this is where the OT comes in, to help, again, get that child to be, do some co-regulation, get that child to be regulated enough so they can then start engaging in whatever activities and tasks that we have ready for them, right? So that's what dysregulation looks like. Right? And signs of regulation, first, increased joint attention, checking in with you much more, easily following directions, sharing of emotions, reciprocal joint affect. And you would know as a therapist when a child is really engaging with you. If you're doing like you're playing a game with them, or giving them a task or something, and they are really checking in and they understand what's being presented in them, and they're not fidgeting and moving around like some of the other signs of dysregulation, right? So we have to know what regulation looks like, of course, and what dysregulation looks like in order to help our kids to learn and interact with us even better. And I want you guys to think about children or a child you've worked with, and what does dysregulation look like and what you can do. Anybody, could you just kind of throw out, let me just ask, hi Stephanie, thanks for joining. What does, if you have a child and they're dysregulated, I'll ask anybody. Wendy, could you just throw something out that what you think dysregulation looks like, or you've had a child? Give an example from your own experience, what that looked like.
Okay, I would say the dysregulation is if they come in and they are helicoptering all over the place, or that would be dysregulation, not able to sort of sit and play or engage with you properly. That would be my version of dysregulation. That would be for very little ones.
Yes, thank you. Nadita, what about you? Go ahead.
I think lack of focus when they come in and they're just unable to kind of attend to one thing and they're all over the place. So as Wendy said, yes, helicoptering, like all over. They're flitting, their senses are flitting.
Yeah.
So they're hearing one thing and they're getting distracted. They're visually seeing something and they're getting distracted. So they're just not able to kind of tune into one thing alone.
Right. Thank you guys for sharing that. Meredith, by chance, would you like to add to that? Do you? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had put in the chat that a dysregulated child often looks and acts hyperactive.
Yeah. You know, like my little picture then on the little girl, like just tumbling all over. But yeah, and it could be hyperactive or even hypoactive to us. So, and then sometimes that's just the way the child's sensory system is kind of made up. But it could be either on either end. But either one, they are not attending, and they are not really they're not like even motivated, I would say, to be present enough to do whatever task that you have, aligned up for them. Stephanie, what about you? Would you like to add to that?
Oh, sorry, I was just typing in. Sorry, I was just in a meeting at my daughter's school. Yeah, I was wondering if like a child who would be self-injurious, if that could be classified under dysregulated.
Yes.
As
I would say if my OT was here, she would say yes, and I would say yes. And as like I mentioned before, I don't know how when you came in, if you heard me say this, that there's some behaviors that we might see that is not very obvious to us as to why it's happening. But yes, I would say it probably could be some dysregulation happening. Maybe some sort of internal senses are not, out of whack or so, and doing having self-injurious behaviors, biting, hitting their heads, hitting on, that sort of thing like that. So yes, Stephanie, for sure. I would say yes. I would safely say it could be a sign of dysregulation too. Natasha, Kiara, Cecile, and you guys would you like to add to that as well?
I apologize in advance if there's background noise. I'm currently on a construction site. Well, I can tell you, I'm feeling very dysregulated right now with the drilling and the sewing and the noise and the smells. But I always think of the kids when they come in, if, mom or dad have been stressed and rushing and, oh gosh, we're going to be late and hurry up and get in the car. They come in and they're frazzled, and then for a lot of the minimally verbal ones, I would say I get initially a lot of like pinching and squeezing, signs that they might need a lot of that deep pressure. So I usually will spend some time kind of tickling or giving hugs and squeezes to kind of help build that connection first before we move on to anything. But yeah, a lot of kids, I would say more so the ones coming after school, I find, they're kind of just stressed and feeling rushed, and mom and
Yeah.
dad are busing them from one place. They might be a little hungry, they might be a little thirsty. These days it's hot, all the things that we feel, but we can express it. And sometimes they just aren't able to understand the feeling. And so it comes out in, unfortunately, behaviors sometimes. But definitely, I think dysregulation is the foundation of it all.
Yeah.
Enjoying it so far. Thank you, Sirlon.
Thank you so much. Kiara, Cecilia, would you guys to add to that or anything? What have you seen in your own practice or anything?
I can speak that right now. I mean, we have silence now, but trying to put my daughter down for a nap, and it's already like 45 minutes past nap time, and it's not going well. She is dysregulated. That's currently what's going on.
That's a
That is so funny.
Kiara.
You're probably dysregulated too, Kiara.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
So we need to figure out some nice OT strategies to help both of you get back to be regulated. But thank you, Kiara, for sharing that. But generally, guys, thank you everyone. We've seen it, and sometimes our parents aren't even aware that dysregulation is what's happening, and thinking the child is misbehaved or whatever. I mean, for the most part, I think parents do kind of know that maybe their child is tired or hungry, and this is where we see a lot of dysregulation happening. And of course, depending on the time of day, whatever. But the main thing is that we are able to identify that. And as Natasha kind of just alluded to, so she will spend a little time trying to regulate them before we even get into whatever tasks or activities that we have for them. All right, so great. So just to kind of go over just quickly, constantly on the move, humming to themselves. These are some of the things I literally see. Zoning out, fleeting eye gaze, they're not tuning in or checking in with you as they would normally do. Mouthing items, easily distracted, decreased focus and attention, crying, sometimes, as I said, without us even understanding if we did something or is it something in the environment that's bothering them, incongruous reactions, overly sad, or laughing, for again, not knowing what it might be, fleeting visual focus to activity, poor posture for tasks, like kind of slumping in the chair, falling over, lots of things. There's so many things. But once we are aware of this, we could definitely try to help to bring up regulation a little better, All right. So these are some of the things that we, the OTs, and she kind of helped me put some of these together. And this is not a limited list. This is some of the things we do and she does. Massaging their feet. If you have the luxury of having a gym, doing swinging on the one of these platform swings is so cool. Kids sit there and they can do a lot of things just sitting on that swing. So they're swinging and we're doing the activity, so they're getting the regulation. So swinging really kind of helps with calming. Wheelbarrow walks, your office chair, you can spin them around. Love that, doing an obstacle course. And as again, this is very limited to the things that you can do to help support regulation and co-regulate at the same time, right? And as a child gets the support from the therapist, from us, they themselves kind of learn that they can ask for these things. And guess what, SLPs? We can create like a communication board or something for them to ask for the things that will help them feel regulated. And we have a lot of times kids will come in and they'll either say swing, or I have a visual of a swing, they'll point to it because they like it. You know what I'm saying? Because they probably know that it makes them feel better. So communication happens all the time. So while the OT is working on massaging feet, we're counting or we're singing a song, and you can see they start smiling a little better, smiling even more, looking at you, and really the joint attention goes up a whole lot. So again, very limited into the, this is a very limited list, but I just thought these are some of the ones that we use at the clinic, at my clinic. All right, so massaging feet, animal walks, obstacle courses, swing, spinning on a chair, Play-Doh, therapy, any of those kind of things. I would really encourage, if you guys have an OT or have access, to speak to an OT to kind of help. It really does make a difference. figuring out what are some things that you can do to help with regulation. And if you don't have to have a gym, but there are other things that you can do to help, right? Okay, so let's keep going. All right, so we spoke about the roots. I spoke about the roots. The roots are where that regulation piece is. And once that's grounded and nice, we kind of go up to the trunk now. And this is where back and forth communication happens with the use of facial expression and body language to convey meaning and to communicate. This is the trunk of the tree now. So the roots are good. We're regulated. We're good. We got our swing in. We're feeling right. This is where the reciprocal communication really happens. So while engaging in play or structured activities, we are always kind of still checking in at the roots there as much as possible. But the trunk will be considered what keeps the tree nice and really sturdy, like even literally physically, kids' core as well. That really makes a big difference, and that is part of the trunk of the tree. And because our kids' ability to use their core muscles really have to help them move, keep themselves up. If you're slumping down, usually head down is down as well. If you're able to keep yourself up, you can now look up, see your communicative part, and see what's happening around you. So your roots are good, regulation is good. We're at the trunk, reciprocal communication is happening. So I say once the roots are rooted, this is when the child is regulated, they're ready to attend to things in the environment. And just reciprocal communication means I can hold my body up, I can take in sights and sounds appropriately, I can maintain a shared attention with my communicative partners, I can stay engaged with others, there's back and forth communication happening, I'm aware how my behavior affects others as well. I can combine verbal and nonverbal to convey messages. And I can successfully think about a plan and organize a task. It's basically regulation happens I'm regulated, my body is regulated. I'm ready now to really kind of learn from other people as well. So that's where the trunk is. That is where I kind of put in there. I think the trunk is like the reciprocal communication piece. So we're moving up from the roots of the trees, from the trunk, and now we're going to go up to the top of the trees, right? To the leaves. Let's see what that part looks like. Right. So the leaves and the branches. Once the child is regulated at the roots and there's shared reciprocal communication at the trunk. Now the child have all reasons to communicate with others. Now, lots of time our kids aren't very verbal, but that doesn't mean they cannot communicate. We definitely can consider using AAC, another way to support them, but it doesn't really matter so much if the child is verbal or non-verbal. The main thing is that once we have the regulation is good, we got their reciprocal communication happening. Now we can now attend to those higher level kind of reasons to communicate, right? The child can communicate to request, to protest, to greet, to draw your attention to something, to ask and answer question. They can start to use words or another means to communicate. Like I said, they can talk about things if they have enough words for that. They can express feelings, they can pretend, they can make up their own sentences, they can have short conversations, and they can do this verbally or using another method of communication through an AAC device, through visuals, or whatever it is. But once we're up in the leaves and the branches, they're understanding many different words. They are able to plan for themselves. They can come up with their own ideas. And again, this doesn't have to be anything complicated, but the thing is that they are able to do that on their own because their roots are rooted. We've established nice reciprocal communication on the trunk, and then here we are up at the leaves, communicating for every reason, any or every reason as possible. All right. So I'm just gonna, this is what I have here. This is like just like you have a client coming in and the child is a sensory seeker, right? For vestibular and proprioceptive input. So this child is busy, running around a lot, touching things, constantly having, you constantly have to kind of bring them to kind of sit or whatever. This is just a profile I'm gonna kind of lay out, and we'll go through it, how we can get them regulated and how we can get them up to the branches. So the child is a sensory seeker, mostly for vestibular and proprioceptive input. Their joint and shared engagement is decreased, so that the trunk level, so not really paying attention, not really taking you in. And this child uses single words, some echolalia, and they can follow simple directions. So we put them up, they have some leaf-like qualities. So this is this particular child, right? So what do? We know the roots, we need some regulation happening there. We know the joint attention should be better at the trunk, and then definitely we want some more communication happening up at the leaves. So we could start at the roots, and I would say this child can benefit from sensory supports in the terms of movement breaks, having maybe doing an obstacle course or something to help with better regulation, right? And to help increase prolonged social interaction and shared interaction, continue to check in on the roots to make sure that they're getting that input that they're seeking, and using visual or some other means of communication to help support with sequencing and understanding directions. So right there, we know we're always going to check in at the roots. We know we want more reciprocal communication happening at the trunk, and then up at the leaves, definitely using whatever that child needs, visuals, a communication device, helping them with the words if they have any, to get that higher level communication up at the leaf area. All right, so I think we have maybe a video coming up. Yes, so this is one of the, we start that. Hang on a second. I think it's just gonna run. This video I'm going to show you is a client that I have. He is 10 years old. He is autistic. He uses single words, pretty much this profile that I just have up here. In this video, you'll see some dysregulation happening, and OT decided to put him on the platform Swing, and you can see he is using a communication app. And so while he's on that platform Swing, we are she's doing an activity with him, and I had set him up before with where to go into the app to respond to the questions that she asks. And I think he also even put in his own ideas of what he wanted. Like, he made a complete sentence on its own. So let's take a look at that. See.
Hi, what color? Brown, red, orange, yellow.
Some dysregulation happening. They're like biting on his hand.
Oh, so nice.
You can hear him. He's getting there. And he said his favorite color is so good.
My favorite color is red.
Since my favorite color is red, I'm doing that on his own pretty much. And you can hear the OT that is walking him through and telling him he's doing good, and she's swinging him. So that was just like a little piece of that session, co-treatment session there with him. And this whole activity, as you see, was done on that platform Swing, and he initiated for himself and put in my favorite color is red. So that was kind of news to us, and we went with that, you know. So it's like a little piece there of what co-treatment could look like. All right, so using the therapeutic tree, a child will flourish if the following things are met. The adult understand a child's sensory needs and provide the necessary supports at the roots. If the adult understands how a child is communicating and provides necessary communication supports for them. The adult has fun with the child using the supports needed, and the adult is in tune with the child and can adjust accordingly with love and ease. That's just like something I just kind of always keep in mind. You know, our kiddos are doing the best they can, and we just really want to help them to kind of get up to the best of their potential. So from the roots to the trunk to the branches and the whole tree is one whole thing, and you just have to kind of always keep checking in on each part. But I would say keeping your eye on the roots, that OT support, that regulation really makes a world of a difference. All right. So in conclusion, start and end with good regulation, and you will notice increased joint attention and engagement, increased back and forth communication, forming own ideas and initiating communication. And sometimes it doesn't always happen like this, but I would say if you can have a successful session with a child being regulated, I think that's a good start. And never try to impose other things on them while they're, and think about your own self. If you are frazzled and somebody's asking you to do a math problem, you definitely not going to do it. So always kind of look at those roots and make sure that your kids are regulated. Right? So over time with intervention, the roots will be stronger with good regulation, of course, and as the child's engagement continues to mature. So I wanted to share with you, I think that's it. Yeah. I just wanted to share with you guys. I'm gonna just share this for a second. I want to bring up hang on a second here. I want to bring up a report of what the therapeutic tree looks like. In real life. Hang on a sec.
While you're searching for that, Sirlon, can I just add?
Mhm.
Working with an OT once shared with me that, you know, most times people think regulation just means calm, but regulated doesn't necessarily mean calm only. It means that and you may have said this or something similar earlier, sorry, I joined a little late, but that your state of energy matches the activity that you're engaged in. So you don't expect a child to be calm on the playground. You don't expect, you know, so it's making sure that you are either, sometimes we have to rev up the kids, you know, so I have some who are dysregulated, but they're like floppy noodles. I need to wake them up. So we jump on the beanbag or, you know, so that always stuck with me because not having OT training, you know, we just hear the word regulated and we think that means calm and kumbaya, but it actually means that we need to match our energy to the state. So if you need to increase your energy to do something and exert, you know, energy, then you want your state of regulation to be a little higher. So I think this is where the zones of regulation stuff comes in a little bit more. Like, what do you need to be for which activity or which mental state or emotion you're feeling? And that it's okay. It's all feelings are okay. It's just once you, I actually have a beautiful graphic that has nothing to do with OT or speech. It has to do with like your own mental health and regulation. And if I can find it, I'll share it in the community group. That it's not about, it actually kind of is the foundation of how I try, keyword try, to manage my diabetes. That I try not to go too high or too low because it's exhausting. So it's almost like you're riding the waves of dysregulation a little bit so that you can come back to your baseline easily instead of going like too extreme in either way, if that makes sense. Okay, you found it. I'm going to mute now. Thank you.
Hey, Natasha. So yes, I did mention before that dysregulation could look like hyper or hypoactive as well. So you're right. You have to be in a good place, in a good zone where you're able to take in the information, to take in interaction with whoever that child is interacting with. So yes, it does not necessarily mean just hyper only. It's just like the right porridge, not too hot, not too cold. It's just right. So this is what our reports kind of look like when we do our co-treatment. So we fill in name, date, and the usual. And this is like a version of our therapeutic tree. If anybody there could kind of help us come up with a nice graphic that we can literally, you know, work with our parents. This is what we show our parents when we do it, but we're working on it actually to come up with a nice graphic so parents can do it at home as well too. But this is what our therapeutic tree looks like. And as you can see, regulation at the bottom here. And when we go over this with our parents, the OT would say, yes, they're hyperactive, and we'll circle it. And this one is kind of filled in already. And this is for the little guy that you saw in the video. And then at the side here, the trunk, we would say if they're regulated, present most of the time, if they're engaged, present none of the time, or whatever it is. And as we go higher and higher, we kind of go through each area and circle it or make it bold it out so parents can know, we are working on their regulation, we're working on their engagement, we're working on their affect, whatever it is might be is literally stated here in the tree. And then we kind of do a quick kind of write-up of he's a sensory seeker, overall good regulation, good joint attention, using visuals to request, good. So it's like literally like a nice IEP that we, more or less like an IEP we come up with for our kiddos, because it really gives parents a nice something to read and understand. This is what's happening with their child, and these are the things that we're recommending. So you can see here, occupational therapy, she would write in what she evaluated, and I will do the same for speech. He continues to use single words, still using some echolalia, difficulty with long back and forth conversations, adequate social interactions, and these are the things that this is where I would like him to be a social partner. So initiating the interaction, requesting desired things, everything that we do for communication. So literally we write everything down here. We put in with prompts if they're doing it independently and what our recommendations might be. Look, I didn't even realize here we had here, he needed a haircut. So that was one of the concerns for the parents. And we put client will benefit from a social story addressing expectations surrounding haircuts, use a visual, use a timer, provide vestibular proprioceptive input with a spinning chair, animal walks. We really lay everything out for parents. And this report gets written up and we go over it with our parents and they have it for their files, and we can always refer back to it, as we progress through therapy. I even put in here for school, what are some things they can do, providing visuals, first then boards, and that sort of thing like that, so a pretty comprehensive kind of report that we provide for them. But this is our little therapeutic tree that really gives our parents a nice kind of a visual as to understanding their child communication and their behaviors and their whole sensory system on a whole. So guys, that is the end of my presentation. I hope it was good and informative. I like using the therapeutic tree as a work in progress, and still working on. I really would love to make it interactive for my parents. Thank you, Stephanie and Wendy. I really want to come up with like sort of like a workbook for I do have a workbook, but I want it to be a little bit, I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible and come up with a nice graphic for the tree where they can write it in and maybe stick it on their refrigerator so they can know that sort of thing. The roots, the trunk, and the leaves. So thank you guys for coming out today. Any questions at all?
Hi everyone. Sirlon, this was amazing, girl. Yeah, I think it was so comprehensive. That's what I have to say. I like the fact that you use the tree.
Yeah.
That's amazing, as sort of like a representation to kind of understand the necessary areas involved in what you put, in the initial slides as, the developmental capacities.
Correct.
And I think that's the way you went about it to depict it visually was so comprehensive and easy to understand. So I loved it. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that so much. As I said, I presented it at ASHA, so I haven't gotten any feedback. So this is my first live presentation of it to you guys. And I wish Shannon was here to help me out as well too, but maybe some other time. But I'm so glad that you guys really got the whole basis of what for me, I'm a very visual kind of learner, and it makes sense, I think. So I'm glad that you guys could appreciate that, and thank you guys for showing up today. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So I want you guys to have a good, I'm going to stop record.